Welcome back, and in this segment we will be talking about the climate change and the special conference that was held dealing with it, and the role of Germany and the German embassy in Cairo in helping us, especially in Egypt, in that issue. And joining us right now in the studio is Ms. Rauia Toama, and she is the scientific attaché as well as the director of protocol at the German embassy. Welcome with us.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
Good morning. And I know that there is always a regular conferences taking place actually every month, and every month there is something that is discussed actually. We know the interest taking place between Germany and Egypt in this respect. So tell us more about the conference this month and more about the title.
Well, yes, it was the first. It's actually a panel discussion. It's a series of panel discussions we hold, or we try to hold, every month on a certain topic, as you said. And this was the very first panel discussion we held this year. It was on the COP22, so the Conference of the Parties on Climate Change that was held in Marrakesh in November last year. And we wanted to see what country leaders discussed during this conference, and what the implementations could be for Egypt, what potentials we have, and also, of course, Germany's role in this. So we invited representatives of businesses, of civil society, we had a politician also who was the negotiation leader in the COP, so he's an expert in this field, and he could really give us some insights on what was talked there. And it was quite interesting panel. Of course, climate change is an issue that is global. Yes. And country leaders finally, in Paris, so this was 1 year before Marrakesh, came to sign this Paris Agreement, where they wanted, or they said they want to limit global warming to 2 degrees, and preferably even 1.5 degrees. As you might know, the temperature has already risen by 1 degree compared to the 1970s. So we're already in the middle of global warming, and this needs to be stopped. So the COP22, after the Paris Agreement 1 year before, was actually called the implementation COP. So country leaders discussed how they could implement these goals in their respective countries. And we wanted to see how this could be for Egypt.
Now, what were the recommendations at the end of the panel discussion?
Well, the panel discussion was quite diverse. Of course, it's always our intention to have different perspectives on one topic, so that it's also more interesting for the audience to hear what civil society thinks, what politicians think, which programs are being implemented, or where there's still potential. So there was no clear recommendation, but I think all the panelists agreed that climate change is nothing that can be left to one country alone. It has to be something all countries work together towards achieving, or work together on adaptation and mitigation projects. And I think there was a consensus, of course, among the panelists that this has to be done, and that also the agreement, you know, the Paris Agreement, you have to think there were 197 parties in this conference, and everyone had its own interest. So many details were left vague in the Paris Agreement on how to implement something, so to get everyone on board. And now they try to fill this with life so that it doesn't remain mere lip service. And at the heart of the Paris Agreement, and also at the COP22 we were talking about, there lie the national development, the nationally determined contributions of each country. So each country has a so-called NDC, where it commits itself to certain measures that have to be taken. For example, Germany has introduced, as the first country, a long-term strategy until 2050, which is the Climate Action Plan, and other countries now followed.
Actually, Germany has a very good experience in this respect. Maybe we can discuss it. And I was just going to ask you also about how do you see the current situation in Egypt. Now we can see the awareness and how climate change has been taken into consideration, actually, especially when it comes from presidency, it comes from officials. So it means that, yes, it is of crucial importance nowadays.
Yes. Well, should I talk about Germany
Yes, of
first?
course.
This Climate Action Plan I was referring to seeks to work on two ends. So it wants to invest in renewable energy, and Germany already started its Energiewende. It's nothing you can translate, but it's like a shift in energy politics from traditional energy resources to more renewable energy. So this is something Germany launched several years ago, actually, so it's not a new thing. But Germany committed itself to even do more in this regard, not only in Germany, but also internationally, and at the same time to boost energy efficiency in several sectors. So it's a cross-cutting issue. We identified key areas where the emissions can be reduced, and actually it's something that almost targets every sector. So just to give you an idea, we identified energy, buildings, transportation, industry, commerce, trade and services, agriculture, forestry, and waste management. So it's really a broad approach as key areas where we want to systematically decarbonize all the areas until 2050. So therefore, it's of course called the Action Plan 2050. And we also developed milestones and operative measures how to achieve this. For example, our goal is to reduce emissions by 280 to 95% compared to 1990. So it's a huge step forward. And of course, the whole plan is guided by the principle to achieve greenhouse gas neutrality, as it was also agreed on in the Paris Agreement, by the middle of this century.
Yes. Now, for the panel itself and the discussions, which discussions you felt, or which of these topics that you mentioned to us right now was the most challenging issue in terms of the Egyptian-German collaboration, in a sense?
There is already a lot of cooperation going on.
Yes.
So Germany is the biggest bilateral donor, and also through the EU, for example, multilateral donor in this regard. So there are many programs that are already taking place, also with regards to renewable energy and energy efficiency. We have several organizations that work here, for example, the GIZ, I believe you know it, the German Organization for Economic Development and, for economic development, one can say. And they invest in renewable energy in the fields of solar, of wind and water as well, because we see that there's a great potential, and Egypt still has not completed this potential, which is a positive thing, because there's still room for improvement and progress that can be made. And it's a very interesting sector, actually. And well, this is what the GIZ does. We also supported the Egyptian government through expertise and the exchange of know-how through our joint committee on renewable energy and energy efficiency. We have German and Egyptian experts and also politicians that come together there and discuss solutions for the challenges they face. So this joint committee actually supervised the respective Egyptian ministries when introducing the feed-in tariff and how to, as you might know, the second phase of the feed-in tariff has already been launched. So how to just improve the network and also how to give incentives for renewable energy.
Usually what is next, or how do you arrange after the panels, especially in this respect? So we have recommendations, and then we have some people who are in charge, for example, or something like this afterwards, the action plan, or what?
No, our format is really just to raise awareness. So this is also something we do when we think of projects. It's very important just to bring topics on the table and to make them also, well, to just make them open also for the public. So it's a public format. Of course, there's a public part and a part that's not open. It's only open for experts. Usually this expert workshop takes place one day before the panel discussion, and we bring together lots of experts and also government officials, representatives from the economy, so that they really exchange their thoughts, their experiences, and maybe we cannot give solutions. We can just give them a platform where they discuss, where they come together, maybe where they just build cooperations, but among themselves. We don't force anyone to do something. It's just an issue we want to raise, and we want to give them the room to discuss it. So that's the idea. And after the panel discussion, of course, there's a press release. We give interviews like this one, also with different media. And we hope that people will just become more and more aware. And it was the 45th Cairo Climate Talks, actually. So it has been on for several years now. And we always get great response and work together very closely with the Egyptian Ministry of Environment on that. So that's our main partner. Of course, we also partner with German organizations. GIZ already mentioned them, but also the DAAD, for example, the German Academic Exchange Service, who also tries to tackle these topics through their field of work. They support student exchange and the exchange of researchers. So, of course, also we're very active in the field of research when it comes to renewable energies. We, I don't know if I should talk more about it.
Yes, indeed, of course.
We just supported a study that has been done, well, the end of last year. It was a German research institute, the Fraunhofer Institute, and they partnered with with an Egyptian institute, the Solarize Egypt, and they compared the prices, how they developed and how they will develop in the future, of renewable energies and the traditional sources of energy. So they found out actually that the renewable energies, the prices of the renewable energies, they fell throughout the last years and now become highly competitive also in Egypt. So it's really something. Well, before, you know, we said it's too expensive. So for an economy to grow, it's difficult to invest in renewable energies or to use them because it's not so efficient, or the benefits will be less, and the financial benefit. But now, as it has become competitive, it's really something one should invest on and should rely on, because in the future this is our only chance to enhance living conditions all over the world.
Well, I understand that you have an initiative which you've mentioned also, which is the Africa Climate Adaptation, and it's related to waste management. and that it's in phase 2 right now. So would you tell us what's the latest news about it?
Well, this is not our initiative.
Oh, it's not?
It's an Egyptian initiative together with other African countries. Of course, we would need an Egyptian expert now to get more into
detail. But what
detail.
about, you mentioned that there is a waste initiative that you talked about, that you discussed during the panel as well.
A waste initiative.
Or you do not have one?
Well, of course, we support Egypt also when it comes to waste management. Yes. But I'm not quite sure what you are referring to, because as far as I remember, this was not raised during the panel. Of course, one could think of using, well, it's maybe this is what you mean. There's
because there was news about His Excellency the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, and how he was talking about academic exchange services in Egypt, and that he was also supporting the second phase of the African adaptation initiative. That was a piece of news, but if it's not
maybe
in
it
the
was
panel,
a mistake.
then it's fine. Then what other issues you'd like to elaborate on?
Well, just this Africa Adaptation Initiative was entered phase 2, and this was announced by Egypt during COP22. And basically it says that African countries are committed to also to the goals and to the Paris Agreement, but of course the measures they want to do, they need foreign funding and they need help from outside. And actually Germany raised the issue and initiated a global NDC partnership. As I said before, the nationally determined contributions are unique to every country, but they serve a common interest and the common goal of reducing the global warming. And Germany initiated this global NDC partnership, where actually countries, industrialized countries, want to help industrializing or developing countries actually to implement their strategies. So they do it through financing and also through technical know-how.
As long as we are talking about the awareness, and how far are we, is there a space for universities, for example, for the students to participate, as long as we can work on this as well, talking about the new generations to come to understand the climate change and how serious it is?
Yes, this is a very important issue actually. We are focusing also on youth because as you said, this is a new generation and they have to learn from the beginning and to be aware that...
Which levels are you working on?
Well, we have one binational master program between Cairo University and a German university. It's the University of Kassel, and it's on renewable energy.
I think this is great. So it is not a private university.
No,
it is
it's not.
The Cairo University, so this is something great.
Yes, that's, I mean, for us it's important. You know, the German university system, we focus a lot on public universities. Private universities are not...
They don't need it that much.
We have them, but usually if you think of going to a university, that's not the first thing that comes into your mind. So there exists this partnership between these two universities. Of course, there are others, but we were not talking about the energy and climate change. So this is one master that comes to my mind. And also the Technical University Berlin has a satellite campus in El Guna. I don't know if you've heard about it. Apart from that, it's a very nice place, of course. It's also a very good project because they can focus there on energy engineering, and they have 3 master programs now that focus on something that has to do with renewable energy or how to make this work. So
high schools are included or only universities?
High schools, no, not, well, we are not involved in this, but I hope that there is, of course, something in the curricula, but this is also an Egyptian question, or to an Egyptian. If it's included in the curricula, of course, I would love to see this.
Yes. Well, we'd like to thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Rauia Toama, the scientific attaché as well as director of the protocol at the German embassy. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much.
And we will be going to a quick break, and then we'll be back with breakfast show, so stay with us.